Hey guys, so here's part 2 of the 6.1 notes. We're going to evaluate expressions with and without a calculator. So remember when it says evaluate, that really means that we're going to make sure we get a numerical value as our answer. So the first one is we have 4 to the 5 halves. So in order to evaluate without a calculator, we need to make sure we rewrite in radical notation. Okay, let's try the first one. We have 4 to the 5 halves. So remember, our base here is going to be 4. 5 is the power, and 2 is going to be our root. So remember, if you see a 2, that means squared. So we have square root of 4, and we're going to take that to the 5th power. So what we're going to do is evaluate the radical first, and then do the power. So square root of 4, it gives us 2. And we raise that to the 5th power. Now you might be running, well, how can I know what's 2 to the 5th without a calculator? Well, you can basically do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or basically do that 5 times. Now another thing is I am going to have this on our Schoology course. This is an exponent cheat sheet. So basically you can also use this, and you're kind of going to see a lot of patterns or the same numbers repeated over and over again. So pretty soon you're going to get these numbers memorized. So 2 to the 5th is actually going to be 32. So you can use this for your homework, so you don't try to do it with a calculator, okay? So 2 to the 5th is 32, so that's going to be our answer for this problem. So it's going to be 32. Okay, let's do part B. Now, what I'd like you to do first is go ahead, pause the video, and rewrite 9 to the negative 1/2 in radical notation. Okay, let's see what you have. Well, first, notice we do have a negative exponent, so I do need to bring 9 to the 1/2 into my denominator, so I can get that exponent of 1/2 to be positive. Now I go ahead and rewrite it. So my base is going to be 9, the exponent or power is 1, and my root is 2. So that's square root of 9. And remember, anytime you have a power of 1, you do not need to write that out. So now we just do square root of 9, which we definitely could do that without a calculator. That's going to give us 3. So we get 1/3, and that's our answer. Now make sure when you do evaluate these, leave your answer as fractions, no decimals. Okay, go ahead and do the same thing for part C. Pause the video and rewrite 81 to the 3/4 in radical notation. Okay, let's see what you got. So 81 is our base, 3 is going to be the power, and 4 is our root. So here I have the 4th root of 81, and that's being taken to the 3rd power. Now let's go ahead, let's consult our cheat sheet here. Okay. So we're really thinking about 4th root of 81, which I do see what that is right here. So notice with the powers of 3, when we have the 4th root of 81, that gives us 3. And so what we mean the powers is that when we take either the square, the cube root, or 4th root, we will get 3 as our answer, okay? So the 4th root of 81 is always 3. So now we have 3 cubed, and I hope we already know what this is without consulting either with our calculator or our cheat sheet, okay? So 3 cubed, if you need to use your cheat sheet, and that's going to be in the powers of 3 again. 3 cubed is going to be 27. So be careful you don't get 9. That's 3 times 3. But 3 cubed is 27. Okay, I would like to go ahead. I want you guys to pause the video and try D all by yourself. Okay, let's see what you got here. So 1 is our base, 7 is the exponent, 8 is the root. So I have the 8th root of 1 to the 7th power. Now what do you think the 8th root of 1 is? Well, hopefully you said 1. Think about it. Anytime we take the square root, well, square root of 1 is 1. Cube root of 1 is 1. 4th root of 1 is 1. So anytime you take any root of 1, it's just going to be 1, okay? So we have 1 to the 7th power, and hopefully you know what this is. 1 to the 7th, it's just going to give us 1. Okay? Okay, now let's go ahead and try example 5. Now these expressions, we will have to use a calculator because we are going to get decimals as our answers. So what we'll have to do is we'll round our answers to 2 decimal places. So this is where you need to make sure you do have a calculator. Now for the first one, 4 to the 2/5. Now on these, you do not need to rewrite in the other notation. We just literally plug this into our calculator, okay? So let me find that. There we go. Okay, let's try 4 to the 2/5. So I do 4, do the caret key. So this is what you use either on the graphing or scientific. So make sure you do the caret key. We do 2 divided by 5. If you're using a scientific, you probably did parentheses. So make sure you do 2 divided by 5 in your parentheses. And we should get about 1.74 as our answer. Okay, now so in do part B, we have 64 to the negative 2/3. So the nice part here, because we are using a calculator, I don't need to rewrite that, making it into a fraction, because we're just wanting a decimal. So I have 64 to the, once again, I use that caret key to represent an exponent. Make sure you use the negative button and not the subtraction button, because otherwise it will not work. So we have negative 2 divided by 3. And once again, if you are using a scientific, you'll do the negative 2 divided by 3, then end your parentheses. So we get about 0.06 as our answer here. Okay, now for C, now we're getting into radicals. So let's talk about how would we write the 4th root of 16 to the 5th power, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use parentheses. Really with graphing calculators, you don't have to use as many parentheses, but if you're using a scientific, you will, okay? So I'm going to do parentheses. We are using the 4th power, so I'm going to do 4, the number 4. Now I need to go into math, and I'm going to go to number 5 here. There's going to be that x radical there. So I press that to give me my 4th root, and I'm doing it of 16. Now make sure if you're using a scientific, it's going to use parentheses, so you just close the parentheses. If you're using a graphing, you do need to write arrow over. Now I'm going to do another set of parentheses. So if you're using scientific, you probably have 2 parentheses here, okay? Then I take it to the 5th power. And then I press enter, and I get 32. So this one, we could have gotten a nice answer. This one we could have actually done without a calculator. Okay, let's go ahead and try part D. Okay, so we need the cube root. So once again, I'm going to do parentheses. Now I'm going to go ahead and go math and do number 4, because that's my cube root there. Then I'm going to do negative 30. Make sure you use the negative sign and not the subtraction, because it will not work. Okay. Now I got to arrow over, right arrow over. Now if you are using, once again, a scientific, you probably have parentheses. Here, if you're using a scientific, you will have to have 2 parentheses at the end. If you're using a graphing, just 1. And then I just press the squared, x squared button, and then enter. So here I get 9.65 as my answer. Okay, make sure you watch part 3 of the 6.1 notes. We're going to be talking how to solve equations.